Saradavanalalidalokam Pranayakarunya Danavanakam
Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasora Sena
Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditra Madhyan Manasurasena
Romanchakampa Shutaranga Vajyo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Romanchakampa Sutaranga Vajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityananam Shingarathan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Staniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Yuktasya Bhaktam Staniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Chaturvida Shri Bhagavad Prasado Swadana Triptan Haribaksha Sangram
Chaturveda Shri Bhagavad Sadhana Triptam Haribhakta Sangram
Ritraiva Triptim Bhajata Sadaiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanamna Pratikshanasvadanalolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Nikunjayono Ratikeli Sethai Yayali Vir Yukti Rapekshaniyai Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Sakshadaritvina Samasa Shastre Uktastatha Bhayate Vasadi
Sakshadaritvina Samasa
prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi
Yasha Prasada Yasha Prasada Nagati Bhutapi
jayam stuvam sasaya satrisadyam vande guru shri charanaravinda
Jayam Suvantasa Yasati Sandam Vande Guru Shri Charanavinda
vande guru shri charanaravinda vande guru shri charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanavinda Vande Guru Shri Charanavinda
vande guru shri charanaravinda vande guru shri charanaravinda
Vande Guru Shri Charanavinda Vande Guru Shri Charanavinda
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastyatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pachata Deshatarine
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe.
Jaya Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava.
Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Ma Jaya Sudarshan Chakra.
Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra.
Jaya Sita Ram Jaya Sita Ram, Sita Ram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman.
Jaya Sitaram 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 Jaya Lakshmana.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha.
Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai.
Jaya Gauranita Gauranita Jaya Gauranita Jaya Gauranita.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva.
Jaya Guru Deva Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva Jaya Guru Deva.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. जय विष्णु पार परमंस प्रभाजक आचार्य सूत्र शिष्य महाराज divine grace अभय रविन्द्र भक्ति विरांत स्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कान प्रतिष्ठा विविधि संस्थापक आचार्य वैष्णव शिरोमणि पतित पावन श्रील प्रभुपाद जी महाराज की जय। श्री गौरी गुरु वर्गा पतित उद्धार की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भक्त रघुनाथ श्री जय गोपाल भट्ट दास गुण सदगुरु स्वामी प्रभु की जय। नाम आचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय। अनंत कुरी वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्रीमन गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावृणाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकीय प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। युग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद निदांग ट्रांसलेटर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपिना राधा कुंसम कुन गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज भूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। दिलोश श्री श्री राधा नीला माधव की जय। श्री मायापुर एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कर सिंह भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। जगंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी परमानंद। All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glory to the Assembly bodies. All glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Praglada Ladadayine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Silantanka nakalaye.
Jaya Silatanka Nakalaye.
Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha.
Ito Nisingha Parato Nisingha.
Yato Yato Yamitato Narsimha.
Jato Jato Jamitato Nisingha.
Bahir Narsimha Hirdaye Narsimha.
Aye Nisingha Hridaye Nisingha.
Narasimha Madim Saranam Prapate.
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Tava Karakamala Bare Nakam Abhuta Shingham Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavatirtha Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tava Karakamala Bare Nakam Abhuta Shingham Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanavringam Keshavadhyata Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jayo Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Keshavatita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jayo Narasimha De 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 Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jayo Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. जय भक्तिपद सर्वविघ्नाशना कनिष्ठ करे भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। गौर प्रमानंदे दिवो। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की।
Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha
तुलसी कृष्ण
Preyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Heya Bilasi
राधा कृष्ण
Seva Pavo Heya Bilasi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Heya Bilasi
राधा कृष्ण सेवा
ये तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंच पूर्ण होय
जय तुम्हारा शरणाना तारा वंश पूर्ण
कृपा करी करो तारे वृंदावन वासी करो निज दासी दीना कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि
च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि
च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी नित्य गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि बोल वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradede Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Vai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradede Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradede Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always stream in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shiksastakam Ki Jai. Chito Darpanam Ajanam Bhavamada Vagninivapanam Shreyakari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivadhanam Pratipadam Purnam Nitapsadanam Sarva Smasman Param Param Jai. Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Vaudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitanyamit Kashmani Nakala Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamati Durdhaiva Midrishamya Janina Nuraga Trinarapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Amanadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadhanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Vajagadishakamaye Mama Janmane Janmaneshwari Bhavatar Bhakti Rohitukitrayi Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Visame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tabapad Pankajastitaduli Sadisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galorashrudharaya Vadanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Pulakari Chitambakukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavisati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakusha Pravusaitam Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahe Iname Aslishva Padaratam Vinashtamam Adarshana Mahatam Karotuva Jatatatava Vidadatulam Pato Matpranastastu Saevana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kestakam Ki Jai. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the hard world, the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan moment is the firm benediction for humanity at large. God spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus we have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord, you have a state of mind, you think of oneself should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of my heart, Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I am falling this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant the holy name? Or will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and you should remain so, even if someone does me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Yet in offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided, they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, which are often veiled as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names, and to maintain material attachments, even from understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna praying. Now let us offer our most humble blessings unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the common conditions.
Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desitarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 2 Chapter 8 Text number 26. Name Sava Parayanti Brahman Anasanad Ami Pibato Chutapiyusam Tadvakya Abdivinishritam. Na, never, may, mine, asava, life, parayanti, becomes exhausted. Brahman, O learned Brahmana, anasanat, ami, because of fasting. Pibata, because of my drinking. Achuta, of the infallible. Piyusham, nectar. Tat, your, Vaikya Abdi, ocean of speech, Vinishritam, flowing down from. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O learned Brahmana, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible personality of Godhead, which is flowing down from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to my fasting. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The disciplic succession from Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, and Sukadeva Goswami is particularly different from others. The disciplic successions from other sages are simply a waste of time, being devoid of Achyuta Katha, or the message of the infallible Lord. The mental speculators can present their theories very nicely by reason and arguments, but such reasons and arguments are not infallible. So that's a double negative. So it means that they are fallible, they are faulty, they will fail. For they are defeated by better mental speculators. Maharaj Parikshit was not interested in the dry speculations of the flickering mind, but he was interested in the topics of the Lord because factually he felt that by hearing such a nectarian message from the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami, he was not feeling any exhaustion, even though he was fasting because of his imminent death. One can indulge in hearing the mental speculators, but such hearing cannot endure for any length of time. One will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed ways of thinking. Hackneyed means already used and abused. It's dull, it's boring, and so forth. One will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed ways of thinking, and no one in the world can be satisfied simply by hearing such useless speculations. The message of the Lord, especially from a personality like Sukadeva Goswami, can never be tiring, even though one may be exhausted from other causes. In some editions of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the text of the last line of this verse reads, Anyatra Kupitad Dvijat, which means that the king might be overwhelmed by the thought of his imminent death by snake bite. The snake is also twice born, and its anger is compared to the cursing Brahmana boy who was without good intelligence. Maharaj Parikshit was not at all afraid of death, for he was fully encouraged by the message of the Lord. One who is fully absorbed in Achyuta Katha can never be afraid of anything in this world. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O learned Brahmana, because of my drinking the nectar of the message of the infallible personality of Godhead, which is flowing down from the ocean of your speeches, I do not feel any sort of exhaustion due to my fasting. Okay, so there's really interesting points in this purport, especially when Prabhupada says, the snake is also twice born, and its anger is compared to the cursing Brahmana boy who was without good intelligence. Okay, so how can the snake be twice born? The snake's, I think, name is Takshaka. Well, what does it mean twice born? The first birth is a seminal birth, and the second birth is birth by initiation of a bona fide guru. So, it's possible to be initiated by an unbona fide guru also, which is happening all the time now. But the snake is also twice born. But the next part of this sentence reveals what it's talking about. It says, and its anger is compared to the cursing Brahmana boy who was without good intelligence. So, even though, the Brahmana boy is twice born also. First birth is seminal birth, and second birth is what you would call dikshadan, giving of the sacred thread. So, but both the snake and Shringi were without good intelligence, and the Brahmana boy was unduly angry, and because of that, he cursed Maharaj Parikshit. So both the snake and Shringi were angry. Now, and then they cursed. So, is this the hallmark of a Brahmana? No. Or a twice-born person? No, it is not. And now we're going to learn a lot about what is the proper behavior as opposed to this egregious and very destructive behavior. First of all, krodha is destructive in the life of people. So this is explained in the second chapter, 62nd and 63rd verse. Davato visham pumsa sangatesu vijayate sangat sanjayate kama krodha vijayate. Krodha bhavati samaha smriti samahat smriti vibrama smriti sat buddhina sat pranasyati. Sorry. So these two verses are universally applicable. They are true. They were true 5,000 years ago. They were true 50 million years ago. They'll be true. They're true now. They'll be true 5,000 or 50 million years from now. So what does it say? Say, while contemplating objects of senses, one develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. Whenever lust is obstructed or in attaining its goal, the person becomes angry. And then krodhat bhavati samaha, and when there is anger, there's bewilderment or illusion. Samaha means perfect illusion, but it's translated as bewildered. When and then it says, it's translated as delusion. From anger, complete delusion arises. Delusion means you begin to act in an irrational way because you're subject to some illusion. The illusion is you became angry because you couldn't get your sense gratification, or one cannot get their sense gratification. So they are illusioned by that anger, and frustrated, and then they begin to act in a delusional way, in a crazy way. Right? And then it says samahat smriti vibrama. From this delusion, there's bewilderment of memory. You forget who you are, you forget what your duties are in life, you forget what you should be doing and what you should not be doing, just like we should be following the regulative principles as devotees, and we should not be violating them, and we should be chanting Hare Krishna and not stopping the chanting of Hare Krishna. And we should be a well-wisher of other people, and we should be tolerant and patient and self-controlled, and all these things. So a person forgets all that because of their anger, and they fall into a state of illusion, and they begin to act in a delusional way. And this delusional behavior makes one forget or becomes bewildered in remembering who they actually are, what their duty is in life. And then smriti brahmsat, when the memory is bewildered, then one loses the intelligence, the ability to discern what is right and wrong. And Smriti Brahmsat, Buddhinaso, Buddhinasat Pranashyati. And when the intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material nature. So here's a sequence that was true in the past, it's true now, it'll be true in the future. So this is science. The definition of science is that something that is always true at all times and in all places, in the past, present, and future. So this is something, this is scientific knowledge. It's given in the Bhagavad Gita. It's a perfect example of it. And no one could argue against this. No rational person will be able to argue against this, what we just discussed. Why? Because it's perfectly true. And in the past, in the present, and in the future. And we're experiencing it ourselves in our own lives. You know, sometimes we have some, we see something and we have a desire to acquire it. And if we're not able to acquire it, over time we develop a certain, let's say, preoccupation. And you're thinking about it all the time. I got to get this thing. I got to get this thing. So one becomes sort of seized. Their mind is seized by wanting to own that thing and enjoy it. And then when there's obstacles to it, they get angry. And when they get angry, they go into an illusory state, thinking, well, if I don't get this thing, I'll never be happy. And then they begin to act in a delusional way, believing that without that thing, they'll never be happy. And then now they're thinking of begging, borrowing, or stealing that thing that they want. And when they get into that bewildered state, they lose their memory. They forget who they are, what their duty is in life, what they should do, what they should not do. They forget all that. And when they forget, their memory becomes bewildered, then they lose their intelligence and they fall down into the material whirlpool. This is science. No one can argue against this. And though every verse of Bhagavad Gita is scientific, every verse. So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, Srila Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. This is the purport, the second chapter, 62nd and 63rd verse. Prapanchikataya buddhya hariyasambandhu vastuna mumukshubihi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. This is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.258. And it says, by development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects. And as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. So these are the Mayavadis. They artificially trying to avoid material things. It's just like one time there was a sadhu, and he had his servant with him. And he came to the temple, and we wanted to offer him something for visiting the temple. So we offered him some money. He said, "No, I don't touch any money. You can give it to my servant." Well, wait a minute. That's the same thing as giving it to him, right? But he put on this show. No, I never touch money. It's, this, as if it's an evil thing, right? And he's above touching money. But yet his servant is going to take the money and use it for him, right? Or maybe even go into his bank account, right? So it's all a bunch of nonsense. But yet it's going on every day. People are playing these roles. It's like a big movie, and they have a certain role. They're above certain things. They won't touch money. But if you offered money to Prabhupada, he would take it, as long as it was not illegally gained. And he would take it and use it in Krishna service, right? Because that's why it says here, by development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. It's just a question of knowledge, that's all. But if you say, no, I won't touch that, money is dirty, I won't touch money. Give it to my servants. Well, wait a minute, if it's really dirty, why would you want your servant to touch it, right? It's crazy stuff. There are crazy people all over the place, and they're masquerading as big sadhus sometimes. It's very sad. So those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects. And as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord, or the Absolute, being impersonal, cannot eat, whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables. A devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So, after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants called prasadam. Thus, everything becomes spiritualized, and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. Oh, I'm a vegan. I can't eat the halva. Oh my God, that's you're being cruel to cows. But wait a minute, Prabhupada was not a vegan. Okay, yeah, maybe it's true that the milk that is produced in industrial dairies is very abusive to cows. It's not a good thing. Right? We don't want to support it. But does that mean that we're going to give up drinking milk? Krishna was a cowherd boy. He was drinking milk every day. Okay, we should have our own farms, and Prabhupada set that up, that we should have our own farms, and we should have our own cows, and we should protect them, and we can take advantage of the milk, and then from milk, the ghee, the cheese, the paneer, and the yogurt, and everything. All those dairy products can be used because we're protecting the cows until they die naturally. But when devotees were in Moscow with Prabhupada the first time he went there, and Prabhupada said, we must have some milk. So they said, Prabhupada, this is Russia during the Soviet Union, and they said that they don't sell milk like in bottles like we have in the United States or in Europe. You have to bring your own bottle. Prabhupada said, well, take my spittoon. You know what a spittoon is? Well, it's a lota. It's a lota that you spit into, right? So, and you use it in the toilet also. So devotees say, what? Prabhupada, that's contaminated. Just wash it. Just wash it and go get the milk. So sometimes you're in a dire condition or in a very exceptional condition. So, but you have to be practical. Okay, you wash the spittoon or you wash the lota very carefully, and then you go to wherever they're selling the milk, and you get some milk and bring it back. And that's what the devotees did. So see, it doesn't mean that we should use the lota every day in our life for milk or for puja or whatever. It just means that in a dire condition, like for example, let's say there was a terrible drought and a terrible famine because of it, and there were no vegetables, no grains. So in a condition like that, a devotee can eat meat, although a devotee would never eat meat normally. But in order to maintain life in a very dire condition, a devotee can eat meat. And some people say, what? Oh, no, I'd rather die than eat meat. Well, if you die, then who's going to preach? Who's going to help other people? You see? So, and And this type of fanaticism actually happened when some devotees in Russia and the Soviet Union were put into jail because they didn't listen to what the authorities said. The authorities said, look, we don't want to catch you again printing books. It's illegal in Russia, in the Soviet Union, to print books, especially about religion. But if you just print one or two and just circulate it in your community, but not go out in the streets or not try and sell it surreptitiously, but just amongst yourselves, we won't bother you. They told them that, but they didn't stop. They said, no, our Guru Dev told us we have to do this. And so they got arrested and they were put in jail, right? And in jail, they were just giving them meat and bread and water. So there's a whole book written about this. It's called Salted Bread. So one devotee, he refused to eat the meat. And he would only, and even the bread, he used it to make beads to chant on. If you wet the bread, because he was getting water and bread, right? So if you wet it, and then you make it into balls, and then you dry the balls, and then you can put it like a pin through it, or you can count them. You can get some string. You take your cloth and you take off some threads, right? So he made his own beads so he could chant 16 rounds on beads. And, well, eventually he starved himself to death. And he eventually died. So was that the right thing to do? I have to strictly follow, rules and regulations. Well, not in such a dire condition. It would have been better to eat some meat if necessary, and then eventually he would have. All the others who went to jail, they eventually got out, right? And they're still alive today, and they continued preaching. So this fanaticism is not a good thing. But yet, one cannot say, oh, then Hari Vilas just said we can eat meat. And Prabhupada said we can eat meat. No, we didn't say you can eat meat, but only in a very, very special situation when there's nothing else, absolutely nothing else you can eat. Then, like either you're in jail or there's a terrible famine, there's nothing else to eat. Then, that condition, in order to continue preaching work, you can eat meat. And when the veggies come back again, right, you stop right away. Right. So this is all difficult sometimes for fanatics to understand, but devotees are practical, just like Prabhupada, take my lota. And the devotees were shocked. What? We use that in a toilet and you spit into it, Okay, yes, it's contaminated, but just wash it and take it now, because this is a special case. And it was only for one day. Right? So another person said, well, why don't you do without the milk? Well, milk is important because it goes to feeding the brain so that you can have good intelligence, and it's sattvic and so forth. So anyway, therefore it continues. For example, an impersonalist, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the absolute being, impersonal, cannot eat, whereas an impersonalist tries to avoid good eatables. A devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So, well, that doesn't mean you can offer him meat in devotion, right, or marijuana in devotion, because he specifically says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. Offer me with a leaf, fruit, and flour and water, and I will accept it. So he has a very limited number of things that he'll accept, and he enumerates them more precisely, and or Prabhupada enumerates them more precisely in different purports. That includes milk, that includes vegetables, nuts, grains, and fruits, and so forth. So, after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants, called prasadam. Thus, everything becomes spiritualized, and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist, therefore, cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. Okay, so this anger is a very dangerous thing. However, Hanuman became angry and Jatayu became angry, but that was because Sita was being kidnapped, and Jatayu risked his life, and obviously he did die, fighting Ravana to free Sita Devi. And Prabhupada says in that respect, he said, we should all be like Jatayu, ready to die to protect Sita Devi and to protect Krishna consciousness. Very interesting statement by him. And the same way, Hanuman, he risked everything to serve Lord Ramachandra, even willfully being captured and taken in front of Ravana so he could tell him, you better give Sita back to Rama, otherwise you'll be destroyed. And Ravana said, burn his tail. Well, he said, kill him, but then Vibhishan convinced him, wait a minute, you can't kill a messenger. He just came here, that's not protocol. He said, okay, burn his tail. The monkeys are very proud of their tail. Burn it. So when they set his tail on fire, then Hanuman, said, oh, okay. And he broke his chains or the ropes that are holding him, and he went all over Lanka and set it on fire, set the whole place on fire, and killed a whole bunch of Rakshasas. And he's only one of the Vanaras, right? The whole army is going to come of the Vanaras. Imagine how fierce they are, fighters they are. So that anger is justified, because one should get angry when someone insults Krishna or tries to steal the eternal consort of the Lord, Sita Devi. Then one, you can't say, oh, please bring her back. No, there's no please. One should be ferocious. Right? But in general situations, one should always be very self-controlled and patient. So if someone insults you, that's no reason to become ferocious. But if someone insults Krishna, then one should be ferocious. One should not tolerate that. Okay, so when it says that the snake is also twice born, and its anger is compared to the cursing Brahmana boy who was without good intelligence. Well, the Brahmana boy was also twice born. So both of them, the snake and the Brahmana boy, violated their initiation and did things that were not acceptable. Right? So Maharaj Parikshit was not at all afraid of death, for he was fully encouraged by the message of the Lord. One who is fully absorbed in the Achyuta Katha can never be afraid of anything in this world. Well, see, what is the problem? The problem is one can indulge in hearing the mental speculators, but such hearing cannot endure for any length of time. One will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed, meaning old stuff, used, overused, things that are boring, completely boring, because there's nothing new. It's always the same old. So hackneyed is a good word to learn. The hackneyed ways of thinking. So one will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed ways of thinking. If you want to really understand the word hackneyed, you can go on the internet and look up, all the videos they have about how the world started, right? The Big Bang, right? There's so many videos, and you have all these big speculators, gigantic speculators speaking, and it's boring as anything, because they're rehashing the same thing over and over again. well, the Big Bang, and in the first 30,000th of the second of the Big Bang, the Einstein's principle that light is the fastest thing in the world was violated. But that was only for a 1/30,000th of a second. And the world expanded, that little point expanded tremendously in 1/30,000th of a second, and then before even 1 second was over, the whole universe was expanded. But yet nothing, it was all chaotic, and nothing really came together yet, and even gravity wasn't there. Even gravity wasn't there. So it goes on and on like this, all speculation, nothing proven. And in the middle of the video, you remember we saw one video, right? In the middle of the video, they say, well, actually, none of this is verified yet, So then how are they speaking so systematically about it then, if nothing is verified? Because it's not scientific. It's fairyland. It's Disneyland. It's all made up stuff. But they use big words, and they try and make it look like it's science. So one will be exhausted very soon from hearing such hackneyed ways of thinking, and no one in the world can be satisfied simply by hearing from such useless speculations. So, therefore, in the Shastra, there's some interesting points about this. So, the Mahabharata, Vanaparva 313.117 says, Tarko pratista shrutayo vibina, nasav rishir yashamatam nabinam, dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam, mahajana yenikata sapanta. Dry arguments are inconclusive. A great personality whose opinion does not differ from others is not considered a great sage. So a great sage or a great personality who has an opinion is called a Mooni. Now there are different types of Moonies. So this is explained in the fourth chapter. Second chapter, 56th verse, which says, Du kesa andadvigno mana, sukesa vikata spriha. Vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dir munir uchate. So Mooni is described in this verse, second chapter, 56th verse, where it says, one who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So the sage, meaning Mooni, in this case is a Stitadir Mooni. Stitadir Mooni is a Mooni who never changes his mind because his opinion is based on Shastra, on Krishna's words, right? But just a Mooni, not a Stitadir Mooni, just a Mooni, Prabhupada defines it. The word Mooni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Mooni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Mooni differs from the other Moonis, he cannot be called a Mooni. He's called a loony, right? No. Anyway, in the strict sense of the term. So these are the speculators. Somebody says, well, the Big Bang, actually there was something before the Big Bang, but we're not quite sure what it is, right? So he's differing from the Mooni who said, well, there was only the Big Bang, and that was the beginning of creation. So some other Mooni comes up, well, that was actually something else beside the Big Bang. We're not quite sure what it is yet. So these are the Moonis. These are the speculators. If you go and look up the origin of creation, you'll see hundreds of PhD speculators giving their opinions about how the Big Bang happened. And none of it is verified. So, but the Stitadir Mooni is also defined. It says, but a Stitadir Mooni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary Mooni. The Stitadir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. In other words, he stopped speculating. For he is called Prasanta Nishesha Mano Ratantara. This is from the Shrota Ratna 43. So Shrota Ratna was written by Yamunacharya, who's an Alvar, right, and guru of Ramanujacharya, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculation and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna, or Vasudeva, is everything. Well, that's also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Baharam janmanamante gyanavam mam prapadyante Vasudeva samaham iti samahatma sudurlabhaha. 7th chapter, 19th verse. Yeah, that one who, after passing many births and deaths of speculation, eventually one will come to the conclusion Vasudeva Sarvamiti, Krishna, you are everything. Such a Mahatma is very rare. Okay, so that's the same as the verse Prasanta Nishesha Manu Ratantara, the Shrota Ratna. So that proves that Bengali or the Brahma, Madhva, Sampradaya, and the Alvars have the same point of view when it comes to Krishna, right? Okay, so he is called a Muni fixed in mind. That's the Stitadi Muni, who's described in verse 256. He's fixed in mind. Such a fully conscious, Krishna-conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. And he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. This is real Krishna consciousness. If we understand this, we will never leave Krishna consciousness. But this is also explained in Nectar of Devotion, and page 91 of this edition of the Nectar of Devotion. And it says, in the 10th canto, 14th chapter, verse 8, it is said, my dear Lord, any person who is constantly awaiting your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the resultant actions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible to become liberated, for it has become his rightful claim. This is a very famous verse, often quoted by Prabhupada also. Tate nukampam susamiksamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hidvak vapurbir vidadam namaste jiveta yo bhakti pade jiveta yo mukti pade sadayabak. It says, my dear Lord, one who constantly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So this is explained also in the Nectar of Devotion. It says, this statement of Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14:8, right? 10th chapter, 10th canto, 14th chapter, 8th verse, should be the guide of all devotees. Should be the guide of all devotees. A devotee should not expect immediate relief from the reactions of his past misdeeds. No conditioned soul is free from such reactionary experiences, because material existence means continued suffering or enjoying of past activities. If one has finished his material activities, then there is no more birth. This is possible only when one begins Krishna conscious activities, because such activities do not produce reaction. Therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna conscious activities, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. It says this is practical knowledge. This is real. This is reality. Okay, someone becomes initiated. Someone becomes a devotee. They're chanting 16 rounds. They're following the rules and regulations. Oops, sometimes they might break one or two of the rules, right? When that happens, even though their karma was put on hold so they could begin devotional service. You can't begin devotional service until your karma is put on hold. And you're then free of the influence of the modes of material nature. But if you falter after initiation, then some of that karma comes back again. Right? And if you completely quit Krishna consciousness, then it comes completely back again. So, because it's going to come back again, or some of it, there's going to be some setbacks in the life of a devotee. And there are setbacks normally in the material world. You can't expect everything to be successful, because this, even Lord Ramachandra went into exile 14 years, and most of it was peaceful, but then the last year was hell, right? His wife is kidnapped, and they have to have this big war, and it's a very, very terrible experience. Right? So even the Lord shows that the material world is not a nice place, and even the best person can have setbacks in the material world, right? Even the best devotee. So anyway, but the way the devotee deals with that is different than the way materialists deal with it. And that's explained in this verse, which says, "My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon the devotee, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds." So this patiently suffering the reactions to his past misdeeds is something unique for a devotee. Most people are suffering, but they're not patiently waiting. They're just very upset all the time, right? But the devotee does not interrupt its devotional service because there's been a big setback. He patiently tolerates it, and always offers Krishna respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body. Such a person is eligible for liberation, for it becomes his rightful claim, because he remained steady in the devotional service, did not become angry, did not blame God. Oh, see, I was chanting Hare Krishna, and look what happened. That means, I'm not going to chant anymore because I didn't get what I wanted. No, that's not the idea of the devotee. So, therefore, as soon as one becomes perfect in Krishna consciousness, he is not going to take birth again in this material world. A devotee who is not perfectly freed from the resultant actions should therefore continue to act in Krishna consciousness seriously, even though there may be so many impediments. When such impediments arise, he should simply think of Krishna and expect his mercy. That is the only solace. Solace means only peace of mind. So look that word up, solace, S-O-L-A-C-E. It's a very nice word. So you're suffering, but you're not blaming God, and you're remaining patient, and you know eventually it's going to be finished, and you wait for the mercy of the Lord. What does it say? Solace? Okay, comfort or consolation at time. The consolation is the devotee knows that he's staying steady in devotional service. He's not deviating, and he's glorifying the Lord. He's not not cursing. Like, see what happened? I chanted Hare Krishna. Look, I didn't get what I wanted. It's all your fault, Krishna. No, it's not Krishna's fault. Right? And like the Pandavas, they didn't do anything wrong. Prahlad Maharaj, he didn't make any sinful activities. But look how much he suffered. Well, that's a special situation, so that the Shringadev could appear and defeat completely Hiranyakashipu, and then Prahlad Maharaj was glorified as a pure devotee. So there are different situations in life. Some are precipitated by the Lord to amplify the importance of and the glory of his devotee, and others are due to mistakes that the devotee made even after initiation. Okay, if the devotee passes his days in that spirit is solace, simply thinking of Krishna and expecting his mercy, right? If the devotee passes his days in that spirit, it is certain that he is going to be promoted to the abode of the Lord. By such activities, he earns his claim to enter into the kingdom of God. The exact word used in this verse is daya bhak. Daya bhak refers to a son's becoming the lawful inheritor of the property of the father. In a similar way, a pure devotee who is prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations — tribulations means troubles, problems, setbacks — who prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations in executing Krishna-conscious duties, becomes lawfully qualified to enter into the transcendental abode. It's a huge statement, page 91 in the Nectar of Devotion. But the same thing is said in the Bhagavad Gita, because everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. In the 12th chapter, 12th and 13th and 14th verse, which is a beautiful verse. I've read it before many times to you. And it says, Advaita sarvabhutanam maitrakaranam evacha nirmamo nirhankara samadukha sukham shami santusta satatam yogi yatatma dhritanishchaya mayarpatamano buddhir yomad bhaktas same priya. So this verse says, one who is not envious, but a kind friend to all living entities. That means all living entities, good and bad. Who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress. Equal in both happiness and distress. That's the main point. Who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, meaning Krishna. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, coming again to the point of pure devotional service, the Lord is describing the transcendental qualifications of a pure devotee in these two verses. A pure devotee is never disturbed in any circumstances, nor is he envious of anyone, nor does a devotee become his enemy's enemy. He thinks, this person is acting as my enemy due to my own past misdeeds. So it is better to suffer than to protest. Right there, that eliminates 99% of the population of the world. Right there. See, it's better to suffer than protest. That eliminates huge number of people in this world. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 10, so now it doesn't mean if someone insults Krishna or a guru, then it's better to suffer than protest. No, then you have to do something. But in the case of your own personal life, it's better to suffer than to protest. I should suffer far, far greater than I am suffering now. So it is by the mercy of the Supreme Lord that I am not getting all the punishment I am due. I am just getting a little. by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is always calm, quiet, and patient, despite many distressful conditions. Just like there's one man that came to see me, this is some time ago, and he was explaining to me, how his wife is really mean. They're going through a divorce, and she's doing this and that. So I was listening to him, But then he kept talking and talking. I said, "Sir, can I ask you one question?" I said, "Who started the divorce?" He said, "I did." I said, "My God, that's the worst thing you could ever do. You made a huge mistake. You should immediately go and beg your wife pardon and immediately tell your lawyer to stop the divorce." He said, "No, I'm not going to do that." I said, "Then why are you surprised then that your wife is mean and she's fighting this in a very bitter way? You started it." "Well, no, she did this and she did that." "Well, yeah, but you're supposed to tolerate those things." So he didn't understand. Why? Because he became angry. He became emotionally upset and couldn't control his mind. And he did the dumbest thing in the world, which is to file a divorce against his wife. That was the dumbest thing he could do. I told him, I said, "That's stupid." I said, "You're stupid. You should have never done it. Immediately stop it." He refused. You see. That's why when a person becomes angry, what happens? They become bewildered. And when they become bewildered, their memory becomes corrupted. They forget who they are, what is their duty in life, everything. And when the memory is corrupted, intelligence is lost. And when the power to discern what is right and wrong, and when the intelligence is lost, they fall down. So this man is suffering because this divorce is unending. As soon as he makes his lawyer puts in some point, then the other lawyer comes in with 5 points. So it's unending, and all they're doing is making the lawyers rich, that's all. They're taking advantage of their anger and delusion. The divorce is one of the worst things you can do, so the husband should never, apply for a divorce. So sometimes the wife applies for the divorce, but that even then one should not fight it. And Prabhupada said, "Do everything to avoid a fight." So that's what the Pandavas did. They did everything to avoid the fight. But when it became clear that the other side, the Kurus, were not going to in any way, find a middle ground, then they were forced to fight. And they did fight. You should not be afraid to fight in such a situation. Gandhi was afraid to fight. So what happened? It was a disaster because he was a coward. So he was pretending to be a politician. Politics in the material world never succeed without violence. Always remember that. Therefore, there should never be politics in the temple. Because if there is, it'll be an unending fight, just like the Gaudiya Math. Prabhupada was in the Gaudiya Math movement of his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. After Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur disappeared, all the devotees started fighting. Who's going to be the leader? It's just like communism. As soon as the leader of the Communist Party dies, then there's a big fight. Who's going to be, And now, because of limited terms, the president can only be president for 4 years. And as soon as his term comes up, there's a big fight. Who's going to be the next president? But normally there's violence when there's a big fight like that, right? And there's been violence. Kennedy was assassinated, and other American presidents were assassinated. Reagan was wounded. Someone tried to kill him, shot him, but he didn't die, but he almost died. So there's always been violence, and there's always violence when there's politics, because you will not succeed in politics without some violence. Therefore, there should not be any political. What is politics? Politics is friends and enemies. One side identifies the other side as enemies, and the other side identifies the first side as enemies, and then eventually they're going to fight. Okay, so it says here, therefore he is always calm, quiet, and patient despite many distressful conditions. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there, and because we want to read our homeworks today. So let's do that, unless there's a quick question. If not, then we'll go forward. I'll stop and continue tomorrow. And then today there's a seminar at 10:30 about who is Srila Prabhupada. Not that you have to know who he is, you already know, but go ahead. You have
Quick clarification, because Muni in this case, and then the Stitadir Muni, and then Srila Vyasdev is mentioned as Mahamuni.
yes, he's a Stitadir Muni. Yeah, he's not changing his viewpoint. Yeah, he's sticking to one viewpoint, which is shastrically correct, and was originally spoken by Krishna himself to Brahma, and Brahma to Vyasa, and so forth, to Narada, and Narada to Vyasa. Okay, so who wants to read their homework first? Okay, ladies first. So I received homework from Shritan also, and of course Arush. I don't know if anybody else did. Did Samart do homework? Well, half of it is better than none of it, so we can hear half of it. Read what the homework is.
Yes, Maharaj. So the assignment was to read the preface to the Origin of the Universe by John Barrow, and compare the origin of the universe as speculated by Barrow to the origin of the universe as told by Krishna.
Good.
So I took a couple of quotes from the book, and then I basically explained
Okay.
different things. So this is one quote from the book that says, "We are living in the universe's prime long after most of the exciting things
You
have
are living in
happened."
the universe's what?
Prime.
Huh?
Prime.
Prime?
Yeah.
Prime?
Yes.
Oh, the beginning of the we're still in the beginning of the universe? Is that what that means?
No, so I looked up the word, and there are two definitions for the word prime. Prime can mean the beginning, but it
Yeah.
can also mean a state of or time of great strength, success, or well-establishment.
Okay.
So we are living in the
You
universe's
see, there
prime.
can be different meanings for words in English, right?
Yeah. We are living in the universe's prime long after most of the exciting things have happened. Gaze into the sky on a starry night, and you will see a few thousand stars most straddling the darkness in a great swath we call the Milky Way. This is all the ancients knew of the universe.
This is all what?
This is all that the ancients knew about the universe. So a claim that Barrow's making is that all the ancients knew was that there were stars in the sky. This claim is false because the ancients actually knew about the systematic creation of the cosmos and were not clueless or devolved. It is outlined in the Srimad Bhagavatam about the creation of the cosmos, and the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago. It was passed down to the sages of Naimisharanya and later written down by Vyasadeva for the common men of the age of Kali.
1 second. Let him fix the microphone.
So it is outlined in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken 5,000 years ago, that about the creation of the cosmos. Most of the knowledge spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam is actually still unknown to the modern scientists. So the ancients actually knew much more than modern scientists about the creation of the universe. And then an implicit claim in this quote is that people evolved from lower and more simple thinking to highly evolved human beings, which is Darwin's theory of evolution. So actually the first living entity in this material world is Brahma, and he is the most intelligent. This is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 1st chapter, 1st verse. Tena Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. Brahma himself says in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 17th verse, inspired by him only, which means Krishna, I discover what is already created by him, under his vision as the all-pervading super soul, and also I am created by him only. So in a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 9th chapter, 13th verse, in Tokyo, Srila Prabhupada says, now how this information received? When Bhagavata was compiled 5,000 years ago, there was no existence of aeroplane, but how in the Bhagavata the information of airplane is there? If men were less intelligent 5,000 years ago, and now they have advanced, then how persons 5,000 years ago, not 5,000 years, many, many millions of years ago, the information was there. But from the historical point of view, at least 5,000 years ago. So how they gave this information of airplane? So how you can say that some 40,000 years ago, what is it, the Darwin's theory, there was no brain? Shamsundara says, ape-like creatures. Prabhupada says, so how this nonsense theory can be accepted? According to our Vedic information, from the very beginning, the one person, one living creature was Brahma, the most intelligent person. Not that he developed from monkey. This nonsense theory killed the human civilization. This intelligence is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the most intelligent person is receiving that, Brahma. And then he is distributing this knowledge. So knowledge has not developed with the development of the brain of the living entities. That is a wrong theory. Knowledge is already there, and the most intelligent person received it, and it is being distributed still. Therefore, Vedic knowledge is considered to be the perfect. And if we take knowledge from the Vedas, then our knowledge is perfect. Now here is the knowledge. So actually, modern knowledge is greatly devolving because of the decreasing capacity of human beings in Kali Yuga. This is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th Canto, 2nd chapter, 1st verse. Sukadev Goswami said, then, O king, religion, truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali. So the next quote that I picked from the text was, gradually, as telescopes of greater and greater size and resolution have been developed, a universe of unimagined vastness has swum into view. A multitude of stars gathered into the islands of light we call galaxies, and all around the galaxies is a cool sea of microwaves, the echo of the Big Bang some 15 billion years ago. Time, space, and matter appear to have their origins in an explosive event from which the present-day universe has emerged in a state of overall expansion, slowly cooling and continuously rarefying.
As soon as they use words like seems, it's all speculation.
Yeah. So I looked up the word rarefying, and rarefying means to lower in pressure or to thin out. So basically there's
Rarefy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he says, in the beginning the universe was an inferno of radiation too hot for any atoms to survive. In the first few minutes it cooled enough for the nuclei of the lightest element to form. Only millions of years later would the cosmos be cool enough for whole atoms to appear, followed soon by simple molecules, and after billions of years by the complex sequence of events that saw the condensation of material into stars and galaxies. So a claim that...
How does he know all that? Did he give any scientific experiment to prove that that happened?
No.
No. He's just speculating.
So a claim that Barrow is making is that by dint of material technological innovation, people have been able to learn more about the universe and that this has improved society. Actually, material technological innovation is devolving society. These weapons of mass distraction have only degraded society and have destroyed the Vaishnava culture of simple living and higher thinking. Another claim that he makes is that the universe was created by the Big Bang around 15 billion years ago. Actually, the universe was not created 15 billion years ago. It is actually described as anadi because it is a never-ending cycle of which no one knows the beginning to. This is explained in the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 21st verse. The creation of the material world, wherein the conditioned souls are allowed to act subordinately by the Supreme Lord, takes place again and again after being repeatedly annihilated. The material creation is something like a cloud in the unlimited sky. The real sky is the spiritual sky, eternally filled with the rays of the Brahmajyoti. And a portion of this unlimited sky is covered by the Mahatattva cloud of the material creation, in which the conditioned souls who want to lord it against the will of the Lord are put into play as they desire, under the control of the Lord by the agency of his external energy. As the rainy season appears and disappears regularly, the creation takes place and is again annihilated under the control of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 19th verse. So the creation and annihilation of the material worlds is a regular action of the Lord, just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like, and thereby create their own fate of being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. The creation, therefore, takes place at a historical date, as we are accustomed to think of everything which has a beginning in our tiny experience. The process of creation and annihilation is called anadi, or without reference to date, regarding the time the creation first took place, because the duration of even a partial creation is 8 trillion 640 billion years. From this, we learn that there are many, many creations and destructions of the material world. Modern scientists haven't even been able to figure out just one creation. In the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 14th verse, Srila Prabhupada says,
You see how all this information is in the second canto, most of it?
Yeah.
That's why it's very important for us to know this. Go ahead.
This phenomenal world is impersonally the representation of Vasudeva, because the ingredients of its creation, their interaction, and the enjoyer of the resultant action, the living being, are all produced by the external and internal energies of Lord Krishna. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 4th verse through 5th verse. The ingredients, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, as well as the conception of material identity, intelligence, and the mind, are produced by the external energy of the Lord. The living entity who enjoys the interaction of the above gross and subtle ingredients, as set up by eternal time, is an offshoot of the internal potency, with freedom to remain either in the material world or in the spiritual world. Therefore, all the constituents that make up the material world are all different energies of the Lord. Another claim that Barrow makes is that time, space, matter, and life appear to have their origins in the Big Bang. Actually, time, space, and matter, as well as life, are all energies of Krishna. This is again explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 14th verse. The 5 elementary ingredients of creation, the interaction thereof set up by eternal time, and the intuition or nature of the individual living beings are all differentiated parts and parcels of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, and in truth there is no other value in them. And then again it is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 21st and 22nd verses. The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all the living entities and their particular nature for which they were created, and he again merges them independently. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karnavakasai Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principles of material creation, take place, and then time is manifested, and in course of time the 3 qualities appear. Nature means the 3 qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. And then I wanted to include 2 quotes afterwards that describe how Barrow basically tries to put down ancient knowledge and promote material science. So he says, "The various creation stories of ancient times were not scientific theories in any modern sense. They did not attempt to reveal anything new about the structure of the world. They aimed simply to remove the specter, and specter basically means something widely feared as a possible unpleasant or dangerous occurrence."
Spectre, S-P-E-C-T.
Yeah. They aimed simply to remove the specter of the unknown from human imaginings. By defining their place within the hierarchy of creation, the ancients could relate the world to themselves and avoid the terrible consideration of the unknown or the unknowable. Modern scientific accounts need to achieve much more than this. And then another quote.
Okay, wait a minute. What is this point there?
Basi-
The ancients didn't have telescopes, and they didn't have all this scientific machinery that they could use. So they related everything to themselves. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But see, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you analyze yourself honestly, you will understand up to 78% who is God. Because the body is a microcosmic, let's say, microcosmic facsimile of the universe, right? And the universe is encompassed by Krishna's universal form, the Virat Rupa, which has a head and arms and legs, right? So the body that we have is a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. So if we analyze ourselves honestly and carefully, we will understand many, many things about God. We won't understand everything, but many, many things, because our body is a microcosm of the universe. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
So these people are, what they do is cancel any ability to understand, and then just go into the realm of speculation. And they call this speculation.
Yeah.
Right?
So actually, right after he says that, then he goes and then he describes the methods employed by scientists, and everything that he mentions is actually speculation. So I'll read that paragraph. Barrow says, the methods employed by modern cosmologists are simple, but not necessarily obvious to the outsider. They begin by assuming that the laws governing the workings of the world locally here on Earth apply throughout the universe until one is forced to conclude otherwise.
That is science right there. That there are universal laws functioning right now. That was before the scientists were even born, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how did that happen? See, anytime there's an organized system, there's intelligence behind it, right? So they reject that, but they assume that there are universal laws in nature. So it's what you would call irrational type of thought, that whenever they find one of these laws that is universal, like the law of gravity, let's say, or some other law, they assume that it's functioning all throughout the universe. And it does to a certain extent. So whenever there's an anomaly, they get confused, right? And that's why Niels Bohr and Einstein had an argument for 30 years about observations on the microscopic level. And Bohr said, look, there's something going on that we don't understand. It's mysterious. And Einstein said, that's not possible, because Einstein was a determinist. He said, everything's functioning by laws. We just have to find what the law is, like I did with gravity and with matter, with energy and matter. So let's look at it a little more carefully. So after 30 years, it became very evident that Bohr was correct, that there are some things mysterious they're not explainable by quantum mechanics. And Einstein had to admit it, right? Although he was very reluctant. So that area of mysticism, where they don't really understand how something is happening, that is going to always be encountered. And I'll show you another video, maybe tomorrow, a short part of it, where the biggest experts in the world are speaking about the Big Bang again, right? And how they set this big telescope in Antarctica, which is frozen all year round, right? And they're doing all kinds of experiments, and they're always just on the cusp of finally proving, that the Big Bang actually happened, right? So if you hear this thing, it's like a joke, they're always talking about, well, we're almost there, but there's this one little problem we haven't solved, and there's this other little problem we haven't solved yet. And this one professor, he's coming close to it, and then the other professor is also coming close to it from another way. And so if you hear this, it's a joke. The whole thing is a joke. But they act as if, they know what they're talking about. So there always is going to be something mysterious that they can't figure out, because Krishna has what we call simultaneous and contradictory qualities. So he's very far away, he's very close also. He has no legs like our legs, but yet he can walk faster than anyone. So these seem to be like not mysterious, but irrational statements about the Lord. But they're not irrational, because the Lord has unlimited potencies, so he can do these type of things where he can expand himself infinitely. There are millions and billions of Narayana forms in the spiritual world. There's millions and billions of Vishnu forms in the spiritual world. These are all forms of Krishna. But yet, scientists can't even have one expansion of his form, right? So they're always going to come up to these mysterious things that they can't figure out. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So then he says, typically one finds that there are some places in the universe, especially in the past, where extreme conditions of density and temperature are encountered, which are outside our direct experience on Earth.
There you go. See, something they don't understand.
Yeah. Sometimes our theories are expected to continue to work in these domains, and indeed do. But on other occasions, we are working with approximations to the true laws of nature, approximations that possess known limits of applicability.
So the true laws of nature, where do those true laws come from? How are they set up? You see, they're saying it all happened by accident. That's preposterous. All the things that they do don't happen by accident, but yet they say the whole universe happened by accident. Go ahead.
And then finally he says, when we reach those new limits, we must try to establish better approximations to cover the unusual new conditions we have found.
Okay, so this is all speculation. We have to speculate, basically, they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. You did a very good homework. Hare Krishna. You see, once you start reading, after you've read Bhagavatam, once you start reading what they actually say that they're doing or they've done, you'll see this. It's all speculation. There's nothing. The scientists have not found anything new in the last 120 years. After electromagnetism, they haven't really found anything else. They say Einstein did this with gravity, but really they haven't really made any real major discoveries. And right now they're still trying to experiment to prove that there was a Big Bang, and they haven't been able to achieve it yet. And they're not going to achieve it. So, Arush, did you do homework? Yeah, come on, read. Anybody else? No. Oh, Smart did half his homework.
So the question was, look up John D. Barrow's Origin of the Universe and compare this with what Krishna says about the origin of the universe. According to John D. Barrow, the origin of the universe was a Big Bang which happened some 15 billion years ago. He mentions that the method used by modern cosmologists is assuming that the laws governing the workings of the world here on Earth are applied throughout the universe. Also, he says that we are just working with approximations to the true laws of nature. He further attempts to explain how time, space, and matter began. In this book, the speculative theories about the nature of time and the inflationary universe explains wormholes.
Inflationary means the universe is always expanding because there was a Big Bang, and now all that matter is expanding. It hasn't stopped. And there's some kind of a proof. They say there's a proof that in the cosmos there's some sound. That's the original sound of the Big Bang, and it's still going on, So they got this sound. They picked up this sound on their big not telescopes, but their big what do you call those experimental machines that they have, right? So after eliminating all other possibilities for that sound, the sound remained. So they say that is the original sound of the Big Bang. Anyway, go ahead.
Showing how they bear upon the fact of our own existence, and considers whether there was a singularity at the inception of the universe.
Okay, singularity is another big word. It means there was a point of infinite dimension, infinite density, but a point which has no dimension, right? And then it exploded. So that's called singularity. Everything comes from this one little point in some space somewhere. Go ahead.
The author explains that we cannot say that the universe was designed with living observers in mind, or that life had to exist, or that it exists elsewhere in the universe.
Well, that right there, they're trying to eliminate any talk about God. So read that again.
The author explains that we cannot say that the universe was designed with living observers.
So designed means there's some intelligent person that designed the whole thing. And you see, he has to eliminate this so that he can speculate. So go ahead. Read it again. We cannot say.
The author explains that we cannot say that the universe was designed with living observers in mind, or that life had to exist, or that it exists elsewhere in the universe, or even that it will continue to exist.
How does he know that? How does he know life doesn't exist elsewhere in the universe? He doesn't know that. See, this is what mathematicians do. They set up a set of first principles. So, and what they do is they eliminate many things, and they have a very, very limited space in which they're going to make some predictions, right? So he's eliminating God. He's eliminating any observer, right? So anybody who's designed this whole thing, right? So therefore, he's just coming, by doing all this elimination, he comes to a what you would call a purified context in which he can speculate now without anybody questioning him. All right, go ahead.
This whole concept is confusing and unclear about the origin of the universe. At the end of the book, the author clarifies, one day we may be able to say something about the origin of our own cosmic neighborhood, but we can never know the origin of the universe.
Yeah, okay. See, why does it say we can never know? Because there's mysterious things that they can't measure, right? And that is that again is pointing to there's some God, there's some supremely intelligent person that did this whole thing. We'll never really be able to figure it out. Okay. Go ahead.
He explained many theories about the origin of the universe, but he himself is very confused and bewildered about the origin of the universe. Whereas Krishna has explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.8, the whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will, it is annihilated at the end. This means that species of life are created immediately when the universe is created, and whatever the living entity desires at the end of his annihilation, is again manifested. According to Srimad Bhagavatam 3.26.10, the initial state of matter immediately previous to the manifestation is called pradhana, while in the Big Bang theory, this initial state is called the singularity. The various verses in Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 explain that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is a supreme existence. Further, in Bhagavad Gita 14.3, it is clearly explained that the combination of material nature and living entities are made possible by the Supreme God Himself. The Mahat Tattva is the total cause of the total cosmic manifestation, and that total substance of the material cause in which there are three modes of nature is sometimes called Brahman. The Supreme Personality impregnates that total substance, and thus innumerable universes become possible. The Supreme Person impregnates that Brahman with the seeds of living entities. For example, the scorpion lays its eggs in a pile of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice. But the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of the birth of the living entities. Srila Prabhupada states in his lecture on
Okay, so the Mahatattva is the total material energy, right? In which the time factor and the modes of material nature are activated, and therefore and then at the same time, Krishna impregnates the jivas, or eternal souls like you and me, into that material nature through the, let's say, the agency of Lord Shiva's linga and the yoni of Durga Mata. And then living beings appear. And right from the beginning, all the different species, 8,400,000 species, are created. And Krishna gives Brahma the knowledge how to do that, because Brahma is the number one Prajapati, or progenitor of living entities. And then his sons, like Daksha and others, are further Prajapatis, or they give birth to different species, especially like Kashyapa Muni and Aditi and Diti and Danava. He had many wives, and all the many of the living entities, including snakes and reptiles and fish and monkeys and so forth, came from Kashyapa Muni and his different wives. The Devas came from Kashyapa Muni and Aditi, and then the demons came from Kashyapa Muni and Diti, and then the Danavas came from Kashyapa Muni and Danava, or a third wife. The Danavas are mixed demons and Devas. So, and then he has many other wives that give birth to snakes and monkeys and all kinds of different forms. So this all happened very quickly in the beginning of the material creation. And therefore, living entities are impregnated into the world, and then they take different bodies according to their previous karma. You can't say when it all started, because it's such a long history that it's unfathomable for us to even imagine. We're talking about trillions and trillions of years. So this is completely different than what Darwin is saying. He's saying, well, it all started by a one-cell amoeba, right? and according to Srimad Bhagavatam, it all started by the most intelligent person, the most evolved person, Lord Brahma, who received the knowledge of transforming energy into matter and populating the world with living entities from Krishna. He learned all that from Krishna. So that makes much more sense than it all happened by accident and somehow or other the first amoeba was born. When you ask them how did that happen, they don't know. They have their idea, they have their speculation, but they've never performed the experiment to prove that you have a primordial soup full of amino acids, and then you zap it with electricity, and all of a sudden you have an amoeba. They've never actually performed that experiment. They've tried, but they've never succeeded. So the whole thing is nonsense. That's the whole point. Go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada states in his lecture on Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 1.12, this material energy in the form of chunk is agitated by the glance of Mahavishnu. Material energy itself cannot explode. The cause for the Big Bang is admitted as unknown by modern scientists, but they still believe that the cause must be beyond space, time, and outside their experience. There are many speculative theories like the inflationary universe and Big Bang theory.
Where do you have that statement that it's outside of time and space?
I read that in the book. It was in the book.
Okay, tell me later on where you got that from.
Okay. They have no proper explanation. Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita gives knowledge which is consistent with modern scientific theories.
It is consistent?
gives knowledge, which is
Consistent with theories of the scientists? Is that what you just read?
yeah.
Just read it again. Let me hear that.
Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita gives knowledge which is consistent with modern scientific theories.
Well, what theories is the knowledge consistent with? I don't think that's right. Well, it might be right. I don't know, but I don't think it's right. How can it be consistent? You just went through a whole number of things that are not consistent.
I think what I mean to say is like that basically gives like the right answer.
Okay, you think about that. You come back next week and do research that statement. I don't think that's right. It can be maybe on a few points it's consistent, but it's not completely consistent because you just read a whole bunch of things where it's not consistent, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you review that. Okay, thank you very much. Very good. Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll have Aarti now, and Samart, you can finish the other half of your homework for next week. Okay, the homework for next week is that I just want to go quickly. Okay, the subject that we discussed today is very important, and that is the how the life of a devotee is different than the life of materialistic persons, even very smart or so-called brilliant materialistic persons. But especially when it comes to this question of toleration, of not being discouraged by defeat, of the phrase, it's better to suffer it than to protest. So I want you to look up examples of devotees who chose to suffer rather than to protest, and try and explain by using, the Nectar Devotion, page 91, and the verse 10, 14, 8, and then the verse 12th chapter, verse 12 and 13 and 14, and any other references to explain exactly what is the mindset of a devotee. And then, you have the life of Ramachandra, you have Prahlad Maharaj, you have Dhruva Maharaj, and other examples. I might not be able to think of them right now, but I could give you other examples of devotees, especially in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, who Haridas Thakur, definitely, they exemplified it's better to suffer than to protest. This is a hard thing for people to understand, so it's a good research if you can go deeper into understanding and present evidence of Shastra. Haribol. Who wants to lead? You want to lead? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Ladies first today. You can do tomorrow. Shri Guru Charana Padma
Bandamui savadana mate
Bandamui savadana mate
Bandamui savadana mate Jahara prasade bhai e bhavatori ajay Krishna prapti ho jaha hote
Krishna Prabhu
Krishna prapti ho jaha hote
Krishna Prabhu
Guru mukha padma vakya chidete goriya kya arana kori ho mane asha arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru charane rati se utama gati Jai prasad pure sarvasa Jai prasad pure sarvasa चक्षुदान लो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान लो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जय प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जय Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Namo
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Parajika Chastatara Satara Shri Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Namaste Saraswati Devi. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean, feel suffering, and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is that my consciousness purified by the words emanate